I spoke with Alex Little. He's a former federal prosecutor, and he's dealt with Facebook in the past. Alex, as a former federal prosecutor, you have worked on many cases. If you can put me in the mindset of the prosecutors right now on Robert Mueller's team, who are suddenly, and probably unexpectedly to them, dealing with Facebook, how do they get this information from them? Are they going to be willing participants?
So the first thing to know, I think, as a prosecutor, your job is to collect all the evidence that's out there. You want to see, both to determine whether there's been a crime or not, every piece of data you have about a suspected crime. And so Facebook right now has become sort of the epicenter of some of that because of the things with disinformation and potentially the ways that money flowed into Facebook advertising. You do that essentially in two ways as a federal prosecutor, either through a subpoena or a search warrant. Search warrant is going to give you access to more information. To do that, you've got to convince a judge that a crime occurred, that there's probable cause to believe there was a crime, and that Facebook has evidence of that crime. And that's a pretty important distinction, that not only is there a crime that's occurred, but Facebook has something in their servers that would help elucidate what happened.
Do you get the sense that Facebook, realizing that it is possibly at the crosshairs of not only Mueller, but some congressional investigators, and the public increasingly thinking, what are you doing with our information and what are you not sharing with the public, that they're going to clamp down, or do you think that they're going to strategically release information?
I think their history shows that they're going to clamp down. I think one concern is what data do they even keep and maintain? Because they've been really sort of slippery as to what we're preserving, what we're not preserving, how long we keep certain records. And so that sort of hide the ball could take place here. And they say, well, gosh, we just don't have those ads anymore. We don't have the connection data for the IP addresses of who was actually the ones managing those campaigns behind the curtain at the internet.
What do you think the role of negligence is in this? Because yes, maybe they didn't ask the people, are you working on behalf of Russian government operatives? But if they had any inclination or any whiff of this, that they should have said something, does their behavior so far indicate to you that there's more to the story?
There's certainly more to the story, and I think part of that is that there has been a culture in Silicon Valley of anything goes. We're not going to look behind the curtain. Sort of the freedom of information, the freedom of action is paramount, and so they don't really want to know. And I think that culture here really ran into a buzzsaw, which was appears to be a concerted disinformation campaign run by Russian operatives with either assistance or potentially participation of people in the Trump campaign. And if that's true, I think if you're a person at Facebook, the whole idea that you just look the other way isn't going to sit very well with you and eventually your customers.
The other part of this, it's kind of like a clamp I'm thinking of, is politics on this side and the law on this side, and they both are moving in on Facebook at this point. Do you foresee them maybe making some concessions as a starting point rather than waiting to see what happens to them?
As much of this at the end of the day has to do with Facebook's pocketbook. They generally aren't cooperative with investigations because it costs them money to do that. They don't want other people to request similar sorts of information and data from them. So that's been their imperative so far. I hope that they will shift towards a more sort of globally conscious, globally responsible view. But that's incredibly hard to do as a multi-billion-dollar public corporation. I hope they do it. I think there's some suggestions they could do it based on leadership's sort of comments about this, and it's ultimately going to be up to them.